Before we start the show, I truly want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to all of the financial supporters that you see on your screen currently. None of this would have been possible without their financial help because, as you can imagine, trying to invest in a podcast startup and equipment is not exactly the cheapest thing on the earth. So huge kudos to them. For yourself, if you would like to support this channel as a whole, of course, you can subscribe. If you would like to financially support in some way, please feel free to drop me a comment in my Instagram messages. And one last note, because this show is dedicated to Chicago cycling, a lot of the topics, the name dropping is very hyper specific to Chicago. So if you aren't from Chicago, my apologies in advance. And if you are from Chicago, this show's for you.
Yo, welcome back to the channel, boys and girls. Today is a very special video because we are finally doing a follow-up on our video or podcast dedicated to Chicago cycling. So today's a very exciting day. I want to thank all of the generous supporters throughout Chicago who has essentially bribed me. I'm kidding, they didn't really bribe me, but has donated funds, equipment to make everything you see on this video possible today. I could not have done any of this without you guys, so a huge thank you. If you do want to donate, please let me know. We can. I'll leave some sort of email on the bottom for you guys to do so. But in today's show, guys, we are talking to some. They wouldn't call themselves legends, but if you've been out around in Chicago proper, you most likely have seen these individuals. So we have myself, Patrick. We have Omar as the co-host. We have Dean, and we also have Brian. So if you guys want to start, Brian, please introduce yourself to the viewers out there, all 11,000 of them.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm 53. Been cycling since about 2008. I suppose I became a roadie in 2011. Did my first race in 2011 as well. And if you ride around Chicago, you'll probably see me around, not smiling, not waving at you either. But you'll see me.
Why not wave?
I don't know.
Why not wave?
Beautiful. All right. Go ahead, Dean.
My name is Dean. I've been in Chicago 7 years and lived in Oakland, California for many decades before that. Been racing for 12 years consecutively on structured coach training for the last 9. Really excited that I just became a coach, just started a website, which is www.deanofbikes.com. Just love the Chicago scene. Glad to be here to chat with everybody.
Beautiful.
Yeah. You guys know who I am already. Omar, aka Ramo, on Strava. And I'm just so happy that we're here because, I mean, these guys might be a little bit shy and, more reserved, but they're here because in my book, these guys are some true OGs and legends of Chicago cycling. I mean, anybody who is around know these guys. And I think they're the most interesting and amazing guys who are able to grow the Chicago community cycling scene. And I think it's just most, really just grateful to have you guys here. Just to know you guys as cyclists and also on another level where, again, after WNR, we sit and we chat and get to know these guys. And that's why I think Brian, to me, I think you're the most interesting person I've ever met in my entire life. Like, on the real. Dean, for sure. I mean, there's just strong guys that we look up to and just see you guys as just true leaders in the community. So again, thanks for having you guys and let's chat and have a good time and let's learn more about you guys and about your experience in the Chicago scene and how you got into cycling and all your motivations just to keep you guys going.
Beautiful. And so on that note, the reason why we specifically wanted to start this official show with you two is because for Omar and myself, we've only been cycling now for maybe 5
years,
6
less than 5 years.
It's because we're old.
We wanted to
You're
figure
not
out.
that old.
Were the wheels at least round when you
Yes, Dean.
Not for me. You notice I didn't say my age.
Yeah, we figured it would probably be better to have folks who've been around just slightly longer, just to add some context of the overall cycling scene here in Chicago versus some of us who've only been doing this for 5 years or so. So starting with that, what has it been like that you guys have seen in just a few years? Starting from, actually, we'll start with how it's been maybe decades ago, and then what have you seen in the last 5 or 6 years?
Dean could probably touch more on what he's seen, since 70 something, because he did say he's been racing since 1973
Well,
or whatever.
I tried it a little bit when I was young, but I've been involved in it for the last little bit over the decade in Chicago for 7 years. But so when I moved here, I didn't know what the Chicago scene was like. I was already a bike racer, but I had no idea what it was going to be. And my girlfriend looked up a ride. She said, some club does a ride right down the street, and it was Triple X Saturday ride. So I joined that ride.
Triple X.
And it was like, it was like 17 below that day. And I had like my Oakland, California kit on. And I almost died. And, but that was the start. And I joined Triple X. And there's actually, amongst that club and some other ones, some really rich history. I think Triple X might be the oldest racing club in Chicago. I think we just had a 20 or 25th anniversary. It was started by bike messengers who wanted to get into racing. And it's now a 501c organization that does a lot of cool stuff for the community, and over the years has done a lot of cool things like put on stage races. They put on crits now. Right now, there's a guy, Jim Phelan, who is overseeing with a lot of work the promotion of Fulton Street, which is on the National Crit Circuit this year, or actually in 25. So huge history with Triple X, so outside of the club, the group rides have just been sort of remarkably great. You guys talked about WNR last show. It's amazing, quite an event. But what really blows me away about this area is that there's that ride where there might be 80 people, and you pass by 3 or 4 other rides that have like 30 or 40 people, and then there's groups on the south side and way out in the suburbs. So the cycling vibe here is vibrant, not only for road, but for cyclocross and for track and for regular bikes. It's just the scene here. I had no idea when I came, and I'm still marveling at how big it is.
Absolutely. Brian, what do you think about the scene in the last
this
years?
is all I know, right? I mean, I grew up here and got into cycling while I was living here, so this is all I really know. And when I first got into it, it was a little intimidating, I'd show up. Actually, you know what? I never did a group ride. I never showed up to a group ride blindly thinking, I was going to do some shit. Never happened. I rode on the lakefront. I rode on North Branch Trail, and then one day a friend of mine said, hey, let's go on this club ride. And it just happened to be the Cozy's Bike Shop ride on the weekend, doing the same route the turn route is.
And when was that?
That was probably like 2011, 2012. And my first ever group ride was a crit.
You just went all in.
Yeah, I went all in. I mean, the reason I got into bicycles, road biking in the first place was because I had just retired from motorcycle racing, and I spoke to another guy who stopped racing motorcycles before me. I'm like, what are you doing these days? And he's like, I'm racing bicycles. I'm like, all right, let's do this, So I bought a bike, rode it on, Lakefront, North Branch, and he's like, hey, there's a race called the Fall Fling. I'm like, let's do it. I didn't know what to do, I didn't know you had to draft and not go like hell off the bell. I went like hell off the bell. Got dropped. Came back and,
hell off the bell.
What year was that?
2011.
Oh.
And then,
Is that a motorcycle racing term?
It could be. It could be anything. But yeah, and then next weekend I sat in. I didn't get dropped, and then it progressed from there. And yeah, I felt a little out of place even when I started racing. I saw all these dudes, and I'm like, oh man, I know how to twist the throttle. I was still a smoker at the time. So I would actually have a cigarette after the race, and people, the racers would walk by, stare at me like I killed their fucking dog or something. And I'm like, relax, man. And I go on, I was invited to a couple group rides. Went on the group ride, and I'd have to walk half block down, and have a cigarette and stuff like that. And yeah, and then I just figured I got nothing better going on. I want to race motorcycles, but I can't anymore, with my children and everything. So yeah.
From the last 10, 15 years, what you guys have seen, because I've heard conflicting answers on this. Has the racing scene blown up? Is it just more in the public eye because of like social media?
I think it was bigger when I started. I remember going to races where, I mean, it was 60, 70 dudes in a Cat 4 race.
Heard about this Downers Ave. That was infamous.
It was huge. Even in the cyclocross scene, every category race had 100 people in it. Now you're lucky if you combine two fields and you get 60 or 70.
So is that because there's just more racing going on, or is it because you're just?
I really don't know. I really don't know. A lot of people moved away, and some of the other people just got sick of the whole grinding and training just for races and stuff like that. So they cut down on that. So they're not showing up anymore. And you'll see them occasionally out on the road riding, and then But I really don't know. I mean, maybe Dean knows.
Yeah, so there was a real peak when the guy from Texas was doing really well in France. And then participation for USA Cycling, you're not supposed to say his name. Participation.
We're gonna get demonetized.
Say his name.
The triathlete, right? Is
Yeah,
that what we're talking about?
Triathlete.
Yeah.
So, and after that peak, that peak held for a while in districts across the country. In Northern California, there was the same peak, but then 12, 13, 14, it started to really kind of drop off, and there's been a lot of social media and a lot of articles about the reasons why road is dead in the U.S. Although it's not really dead, but the raw numbers have shrunk, and I haven't seen any numbers recently. I don't think they've come back up from the drop after 10, 11. But that said, you have pockets of huge enthusiasm. NorCal still has a lot of races. The number of participants are down, but NorCal doesn't have anything like Tour of America's Dairyland, where there are still fields of 120 pros and 80 masters or 90 masters. Intelligentsia Cup now, Chicago Grit has huge fields. Gateway has huge fields. Tulsa Tough has huge fields. The scene in LA is actually super vibrant and has huge fields across all age and gender categories. So, but all those numbers are still down from that peak on the late aughts, and it hasn't come all the way back. Now everyone's in gravel, which is really, really awesome that everyone's on bikes. That probably takes a little bit away from the road scene. It's safer, and the spirit of gravel is still there a bit, I think. That's fun. So,
Brian, is Tuesday still for gravel?
Tuesday? What do we do on Tuesdays?
You tell me.
I really don't. Do we have a set ride on
there's no
Tuesday?
set. There's nothing on Tuesday. Tuesdays.
We just have to go on North Branch gravel. It just something to do, right? It's not sad. It's not sad.
Yeah, I mean, I've ridden, like in Western Illinois, Northern Illinois. We need to bring like a race there because the roads are amazing.
There used to be races. Triple X used to run
Triple X,
races.
Amazing.
Triple X used to
roads
put
there.
on a stage race in Galena, which is
Triple X put on a stage race again in Galena.
Please.
it's a heavy lift, and yeah,
Me
It's a heavy
and
lift.
Patrick have actually ridden in Galena area / Elizabeth, and I think it's
Yeah.
the most amazing
Stockton
place.
area.
Yeah, Stockton, exactly.
The driftless
the driftless, and also
region,
the Rafa 10,000, I think, was actually
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Stockton, which I
And-
did one time. My first gravel ride / race that I didn't know I was doing, but I just went, and it was fun.
Everybody knows.
It was a triplex, by the way. I went to triplex. Patrick was there.
Everybody heard of Barry Roubaix, right? In Hastings, Michigan. Stockton is a lot harder.
Interesting.
No way.
Yeah, I think the hills, the climbs,
Interesting.
the type of gravel that's out there, I think it's a lot harder. So if they should have a race.
So
out
Omar,
there.
that means we have to go to Barry Roubaix. That's what.
All
That's
right,
what Brian's
since it's
trying to
easier
say.
then, I'll
Well,
do it.
Barry Roubaix is not all that easy, but I think
Gonna
Stockton,
get roasted
as far
in
as
the comments.
the gradient
terrain and stuff,
just
yeah.
the terrain wise, I think it's harder. Yeah.
Interesting.
So with the Chicago scene, both racing and recreational, one of the comments that I've seen just in my own YouTube videos is people will say like other cities are vibrant, like South Florida or California, but somehow the culture we have here in the Midwest seems to always kind of rise to the top. And is that like a Midwest thing? Is it just because we live so close in proximity to each other, or has someone set up the foundation for us to be able to actually hang out and network beyond just as soon as the ride is over? Because that's one of the complaints I get in other cities.
Well, I mean, I think for us, it's like after the ride here, you guys can attest to this. We just don't go home. We hang out. I mean, like, especially like you know, the Wednesday night ride, or the Eric's ride, or Cortado. We do coffee after we ride. That's something that we do. That the rougher ride, they go to Tala, and everybody hang out, and you know, get to know the riders outside of just riding. So you become friends. So it's a nice connection. I think that's one of the things that really helps us to stay
I
connected.
mean, all that existed even before I got into it. You know, when I first started doing group rides with Bevan, you know,
Shout out to
at
Bevan.
Duncan. Yeah, that ride always ended at a convenience store.
Thanks.
Oh no, I believe it was JJ Peppers, and it ended there, and people had their high life, one or two, and they went home. It's nothing like it is now. You know.
No, it's better.
Now it's a lot better. I think it's a lot better. But yeah, it's always been like that. And you know, there's guys like Brad and Eric that have been doing it since day one. You know, and when I used to show up, I used to see these guys, and I'm like, man, these guys look fast as hell. You know.
They're fast as hell.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're not anymore, but you know, yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. It's always been there.
Yeah.
You know, not to this extent, but it's always been there.
Beautiful.
I remember the first. Sorry, Patrick. I remember the first time I did a Wednesday night ride when we used to do the after party somewhere else. Maybe it was that place. But the first time I went on one and we went to the parking lot or the convenience store, I just couldn't believe it because we would get together. There's a ride in Oakland called the Port Ride, and we would get together maybe once a year with a big barbecue and hang out a little bit, but nothing like the mayhem that is this party. And there's like 100 people there, and I thought, what are those 4 other clubs? And so I think it's a little bit of what you mentioned, Patrick, like the Midwest thing. It's just, and I think it's a little bit of people summer hard here because it's really cold for a long time. And so when you do get those warm nights, when you get a group ride, it's on. Like, there's no messing around at the Wednesday night party.
Dean, I want to ask you just quickly, going back to the racing, and I'm going to name drop here, but that's why we're here. So what's it like competing against some of these other individuals that people might know, someone like Bahati or Sharon? Is that how you pronounce his name? Is it Sharon?
Yeah, I mean, we're really, really lucky just to be healthy enough to race. I mean, I always say to other Masters riders, if you get to the start line, you clip in when the whistle blows, you're lucky. But then on top of that, you know, occasionally, because Rasan's in the 40 plus, so sometimes I'm usually in the 50, 60, but sometimes there's only a 40 plus, and he's there. So you get to, I mean, he's the GOAT of crit racing in America. He's a ninja. He's amazing. Just watch him operate, how he works with his team. This year I got to ride 3 races in a row, a Toad and a 2 in Indianapolis with him and his team. And I didn't see him that much. They were usually taken off all the time, but he's doing so much teamwork. He'll work with them to do a bunch of sprints. He'll go so deep that he's just cooked, and he'll come to the back and just rest. And he'll just go back up again and do a bunch of other stuff. Sharon I haven't raced as much with, but he's like ridiculously strong, national champ multiple times. But to be able to just kind of learn from them in the race and watch what they do, I've seen them do just remarkable things, especially Rasan. And he's also like an exceptionally nice guy.
I can attest to him because I think I met Bahati a couple of years ago. I was going up to Northbrook, and I saw this guy, and I'm like, okay, I'm black, he's black, let's ride together. I started talking to him, and he's like, oh, my name is Rashan. I'm like, okay, all right, cool. All right, so we were talking just like 2 normal people. He said he rode Judson back in the days and all the good stuff what he's been doing, but he never met, and I didn't know who he was. So we rode up to Northbrook just chatting like 2 human beings. And I got up to Northbrook and went down the hill across Waukegan into Northbrook. All of a sudden, like, his team was there and everybody like going crazy. I'm like, who did I just ride? I had no idea who it was. And I think I told Duncan, and he's like, hey, look up who Rashan is. I was like, wow, I didn't know who you are. Because I've been biking for a long time, so honestly, I did not know who he was. So that was just the most amazing thing to right up with this guy, and then I saw him this year, and he was like, "Hey, what's up?" You know, we remember who I was, so that was very interesting to see.
Well, that's how it should be, though.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
of course. It's very organic, you know.
Road cycling has this stigma of eliteness, right?
Let's go.
And that's what chases people away from group rides and just trying to be social on a ride is the whole attitude, right? You know, you're on the wrong bike. Your kit looks like shit. You got hairy ass fucking legs. You know?
Should go shave your beard.
I mean, I'm a bit guilty of that, but you know, ankle socks, man. That's a bad look, y'all. That's bad.
No Uncle Sacks, guys. No Uncle Sacks.
No
Remember
ankle
that.
socks, man.
I'm gonna call out our buddy Omar and I. His name is Tony. Beautiful guy. He's the kindest, most generous guy you'll ever meet. But the very first time that I rode with him, he looked me up and down to assess my kit. He saw my hairy legs, and then immediately went to Kendall. Hey, who is this guy? Who is this guy? And I remember for 3 years in a row, I said, one day your day's gonna come, and I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you. And now it's all respect.
Is Tony around still?
Oh yeah, of course. Tony Beckerly, dear Beckerly. It's a different Tony.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about a different Tony. He's still around.
Yeah.
But
So yeah, no, yeah. In the Midwest, it's hard to be a lead here because you're going to get called out pretty quickly. So I want to ask you both just general cycling question. What has been some of the highs and lows that you guys have had yourselves personally, and just kind of what have you learned from them?
I have no highs or lows, man. I got an ongoing struggle with something though.
Interesting.
You know, I race cyclocross, and you know, I race in the Masters 45 plus field. I want to get the hell out of that class, but I keep telling myself I have unfinished business.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can ever finish this business. I'm finding this out now. You know, next year I age out into 55 plus, and I think I can take care of business there. You know, it sucks being the old guy in the old class,
Yes,
right?
yes, but newsflash, everyone's fast now.
What the hell, you know?
Everybody's fast.
It's like everyone is training to what's the goal? I just want to be at 4 watts a kilo. It's like, why? Just so I could drop my friends on the ride.
I don't want to put in the training either. I just want to do my thing, ride my bikes because it's fun. I can't do intervals,
You need coach.
you know?
need a coach. Need a coach.
I thought about that too, and then
Or a plan.
you
You need to
know.
plan.
I spent my entire life focused on things, right? Training for certain things. And when I got into cycling, I told my wife, I was like, I'm not going to change my lifestyle. I'm just going to do this, have fun, you know. Maybe I should, though.
It's one of the cool things about the group rides is there's people who are really intense about racing and their sport and being an athlete, and there's people who just GRA, just ride around like you.
Yeah.
That's me.
But it's
That's me
awesome,
too.
and yeah, they're it's all about having fun and hanging out with the group.
Right. I mean, if training is for you, you go for it. Because, I mean, I don't train because I told my friends if I start training, I might not see you guys anymore. And I love you guys too much. This is what I say all the time. Like, guys, I just want to be around people. And training is just very set, like intervals and stuff and rest days and this. And I just don't want to do that.
Anything structured is going to take the fun out of it for me, right?
For me, I'm the same
Right.
thing too.
I
So
just enjoy riding my bike.
Yeah.
So
And
interesting.
if I can get some fitness out of it,
But if you have unfinished business, talk to Dean. You go get a coach.
You're there for a short window.
Short time.
See how, then you'll be hooked.
yeah.
So I have to mention this because I think on the last video that we put out, we mentioned that at the Wednesday night ride, which we call WNR here, there is something called the Dean's List. So I want you guys to know that when we mention the Dean's List, we're talking about this Dean, okay? This is Dean, and it is his list. So at the end of each ride, we have about 5 sprint segments, and he will post on his Strava, and he'll post who's the person who won the sprint. So guys, if you ever didn't mention the Dean's List, it's because of Dean. That's very important.
Is there a Brian list?
No,
Do you want to be on the Brian list?
My list you know what my list is. Show up at 7-Eleven on Wednesdays at 11 p.m. That's my list right there.
Yeah, right. I mean, seriously, we have. I think I've left 7-Eleven with you guys sometimes at 11:30.
Yeah.
You stay there that late?
11:30. Yeah, sometimes we do.
Sometimes,
I'm telling you.
yeah.
I mean, this is where I get to really know Brian, and it's
Once
amazing.
that beer start flowing, man.
Yeah,
This is how we ended up here. So we talked a little bit about cycling at a high level, the racing, gravel. Now, on a personal level, what are some things you would like folks to know? And it could be, of course, cycling, but just personal, any things in Chicago. Starting with Brian. Or what do you like to do?
What do I like to do personally?
What do you like to do personally?
Obviously, I like to ride my bike.
Okay.
Didn't I
do?
find out that you make guitars and play them or something?
Oh, yeah.
I've seen those
That's
skateboarding
pretty cool.
videos.
I mean, and you skateboard back in the day and stuff.
I still skateboard. I try to at least. I was a skateboarder back in the day. I'm a woodworker,
Nice.
hobbyist, of course. I built an acoustic guitar just because I was so bored over last winter. Needed a project of some sort, so I did that. But what am I into?
I think that's a pretty good list. You know, there are some quirks with cycling that I have to say I haven't experienced with, like basketball. However, with cycling, I've met so many people who have talents outside of cycling.
Right.
And I mean, even just on a personal level, like for networking, like helping me look for jobs and just other aspects. Like I have not met anyone who has not had other talents in other areas as far as like cycling goes.
I bet Dean's like a chess master or something. We didn't know.
I'm not a chess master.
Dean, what about yourself? What are some things you enjoy? I try not to creep too much on your Instagram, but you don't really post too often. So
I don't post
it's
too
difficult.
often, although I'm going to have to start. I need to hire someone who knows how to do it better. Gosh, I just like hang out with my girlfriend. We travel a lot. We go out to eat a lot. I fell in love with two sports when I was a little kid. I fell in love with basketball and bike racing. Basketball was a lot more accessible. I grew up in the country out in Northern California, so I played that all through college, and then until I started racing, I played it until my early 50s.
Beautiful.
But still a super fan of the Golden State Warriors. In fact, we're missing the Boston game right now. But
Just timestamp the video.
We'll catch the second half.
Absolutely. This will be a good segue then into your coaching. So I hear that you've started your own business and folks are excited about it. So would you like to share what it's about and why would someone desire a coach?
For sure. So for me, the racing love and the coaching love are kind of the same story. So when I started racing again 12 years ago, I just started riding around, and I had a teammate named Anthony Eng, and he was married to a woman named Marissa Axel, and they were both racers. And she's a coach. And so after I'd been riding around in the races in NorCal for a couple of years, and I was just getting slaughtered. And I looked at the people around me, and I'm like, I used to be an athlete and basketball, and I shouldn't be getting slaughtered. So I started working with Marissa, my friend's wife, and completely changed the sport for me. And not everyone likes structure. I fell in love with structure and following the workouts to a T, and it really got me sorted. And then there was racecraft, and then there was what you do at certain points in the race, how you approach your training, nutrition, the whole 9 yards. So if you want to set a goal, and each season I'd have a goal of races I wanted to do well in or something I want to win, and you get some structure around that, there's a pretty darn good chance you're either going to get really close or make it, or at least find out what your limits are. And so, just fell in love with the structure, and then soaking up all the information about coaching, because it's a really amazing time right now. The sports science is changing a lot. There's new ways to test pretty much everything. There's new nutrition trends. There's AI. I've been playing with an AI coach for about half a year.
Oh, interesting.
I argue with it. I'm like, why am I? So there's just a lot of really cool stuff going on. but the nuance of having someone to tell you what to do, to manage the plan and make sure you're doing it well, and then to give you feedback, that human nuance is really important. I actually, 2 years ago, stopped working with Marissa just to see if I could coach myself to kind of figure out how to do it. And I really miss having a coach. And we'll probably start, getting back into that. But I just love the science and the idea of helping people achieve goals, whether or not they just want to keep up with someone and keep up with a group ride. I've helped people who just wanted to keep up with WNR and it worked out. Or give them some perspective on what they might want to focus on for the season. Or maybe they want to do their first Grand Fondo, or maybe they want to upgrade, or maybe they just want to get more fit. There's, when you work with a plan, it's, if you're oriented that way, which was so cool because you don't like structure and you don't like structure, it's just great to hear that, and that's awesome. But it can be a cool thing if that's how you want to do it.
So I'm going to put you on the spot, Dean. So we have Brian, Omar. Both of them have a lot of fitness, but also don't want to have their fun sort of spoiled through training. So if they were to come to you and said, hey, I want to get even stronger than they both already are, how would you navigate, at least just those first couple of conversations?
Sure. I mean, it always starts with, so do you have a goal? Is there something you want to do that's different than what you're doing now? Or do you just want to do what you are doing now better? And if you really like what you're doing now and you don't think there's anything you want to change about it, just do what you're doing.
I mean, I already know what I need to do.
Well,
Omar, tell me what I need to do.
I was having a chat with somebody, and I was whining. I was like, I'm getting smoked in my races, right? In cyclocross races, and I'm like, I don't get it. What the hell do I have to do? And while I was talking to him, I had a cigarette in my hand. And he kept on staring at my cigarette. He goes, and here I am. I'm looking at everything, right? Everything else except the main component that may help me the most. It's what do I do with that, right? Do I quit?
Yes. That's what you do.
And it's the one thing I enjoy in life, right?
That'll be $229.
Yeah.
That could probably cover your coaching fee.
But I'll tell you what. One time.
Hey, I'm thinking outside the box. No pun intended.
I wish I could. I probably could. I'll try. You can. Maybe I will this winter.
It's taken away your high end and it's hurting you on the other, but especially your high end, which is all of what you need in cyclocross, right. Over and over and over again. So repeatability and the high end intensity is not ever going to be there if you're coughing up smoke all the time.
No, I'm not coughing anything up.
Okay.
Well, that's that.
So if they were oriented toward maybe working on plan B, what's your goal? How much time do you have? When is the first event? And then you plan backwards from there, and then you do a periodized ramp up that starts with base, then gets into sweet spot and a little bit more intensity, and then is very specific closer into the event with the adaptations that you need to repeat in that event. So like in a crit, you got to do a lot of hard, fast stuff. If you're in a gravel race, you just really need to work on your threshold probably and sweet spot sustaining for hours with a little bit of pop every once in a while to stay with a group or a hill. But you can get really super specific depending on the event you want to do. And you're doing gravel, you're doing cyclocross. There's all sorts of, so if you want to maintain the fun and still do some structure, maybe you do 2 group rides and you do some intense structure maybe on 1 or 2 days a week. And so you wouldn't have to miss the people except for maybe 1 or 2 days a week. But
I don't want to miss people no days a week.
then you're good.
That's the best part, right?
I mean, that means so much to me. And I say it's because I think I mentioned before, I used to race, running, okay? And I used to go hard in group. And we used to do this very structured workout. It was paid. We did track. We did all the different things. Sometimes I did this with my friends. And then, I hit all my goals. And then after that, I was like, I'm not making a living after this, right? And then I go to the track. And sometimes I'm supposed to hit 12 400 like 105 or 110 400 meter with 2 minute recovery. And then sometimes I would hit the last 2 or so at 120 or so. I'm like, oh, I beat on myself. I go home, I'm sad because I didn't hit my numbers. And over time I'm like, what's the purpose of this? I'm not making a living from this, So after doing all those racing, running, and it was just for fun, so now I just want to have a good time. Or maybe, I mean, my mind might change at some, point in time, and I'm like, okay, I want to do like structured training, but as of now, I just do my own hanky-panky stuff and just try to keep up WNR. And I'm not going to say I won't drop in 2025. I'm not going to say that. I won't say that, but it can happen. But the goal is to keep up in the winter time, just do as hard as I can. And Patrick, I always push him like, hey, he do like 100-mile ride. I'm like, hey, Patrick, let's go jump on Constant. He's like, I can't do it. I'm like, let's do it. And he actually do it.
I saw you did 100 miles the other day.
Oh,
see,
yeah.
So that's me and we motivate each other, like stuff like
my
that.
top end is pathetic, but I can steady Eddie it for
a long
hours.
time. Yeah. So,
so as we kind of near home base this evening, what are some advice each of you guys have? Whether it could be just life advice, cycling advice to anyone coming new to the cycling scene, especially here in Chicago. What can they expect and how could they maneuver? I don't want to tell them what they should do, but what do you think? What do you think, Brian?
The biggest thing is be nice, be cool, enjoy your company on rides, enjoy everyone. Everybody makes mistakes. There's bad riders, there's good riders. Without the bad riders, you wouldn't be good.
I like that.
Yeah. And a quick side note for the audience. I mentioned this in the previous episode, but the very first time I met Brian, it was after one of our last sprints on our fast group ride, and he comes up to me and says, "Hey, are you Patrick?" And I'm thinking I did something wrong because this was probably like my fourth ever WNR ride. I'm thinking I probably had a sketchy maneuver, and he's like, "I saw your videos. It's pretty good." And then the sigh of relief over me. And we're not trying to paint Brian as a bad guy because you're everything but that. But that was just a funny moment.
I saw you squirm a little bit.
He wanted you to squirm. He wanted you to squirm. Yeah, he wanted you to squirm.
It's like we got him. We got fresh meats.
Yeah. So Dina, I think I've been following you for quite some time because every time we talk about like Chicago cycling, your name always come up. And they always talk about, is this good looking tall guy? I'm like, oh my God, really? And I met you, I'm like, oh, now I know exactly what it is. I knew exactly where, even though Sig is about your height, right? And Sig race and stuff. But the ones that say the triplex, I'm like, oh, that's Dean. Cool.
Dean's got better hair than Sig.
I've seen it without hair.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Sig's faster.
Sig's younger.
Yeah, he's a lot younger. So when you were racing, like what was your highest catch you went to? And what was your, like, one of your favorite race that you actually won, some like a championship? Like, because I know you have some stuff on some fantastic accolades. So like, can you touch on that a little bit before? People need to know that you're this like amazing guy to me.
Thank you. A legend in my own lunchtime. But so I'm 65 and I've raced in the 50s and then more recently in the 60s. And at Toad and Intelli and Gateway, well, there's a series called Masters Cup that a guy named Pablo Santa Cruz from Florida puts on, which is really amazing.
Guy. I've been in races with him.
Yeah, great, wonderful guy. And he and Doug Zell from Intelligentsia Coffee, who now has the Meteor restaurants. He's based in Austin. All these people who just did a lot of really wonderful organization to set up the Masters Cup. So the Masters Cup was attractive because it's a point series across all those multi-day events, and they had different age categories. And I think I won it in 21 for 60 plus, and I was second in 22 and 23. And last year I didn't race as much, and I got COVID, so it didn't go so well. But the Masters Cup, just the community and the quality of the racing, and my favorite courses, which are Lake Bluff, where I got to race against Rasan, which was really amazing because that's a highly technical 7-turn short narrow course, and Glen Ellen, which is a little bit longer circuit but really technical and has every challenge you can imagine. And they're both part of Intelli.
Right.
And they're just amazing races. And so I've been racing those for 6 or 7 years. And what's amazing this is about coaching and about racing in general, is that I told you everyone's getting faster. So lap times for me, as I've gotten older, are now, each successive year I'm setting new PRs on laps on those races where the best in the country come to compete. And So it's not because I'm getting faster. It's because I'm having to go faster to keep up with the people who are going faster.
Which means you're fast.
In the pack, you have to. When you get older, you learn how to hide and suck wheel really well. So yeah.
But for a tall guy, whose wheel are you sucking?
You have to get down.
Hey, believe it or not,
You have to get down really low.
no, you can draft. You
Really
can draft.
low, yeah.
You can draft little guys. You can.
Every time I've seen Dean in the Masters field, there's always one guy behind him yelling at him to close the gap. Not because he opened up a gap, it was simply because they don't want to pull through and they want to be in Dean's draft.
Because I think what's his name? Jeff did some ride with a tall guy versus a short guy showed drafting, and they showed he saved a lot of watts behind the tall guy versus the short
really?
guy.
Yeah. Jeff Linder, NorCal Cycling.
They did.
Shout out to NorCal.
I've ridden behind tiny people many times, and it feels no different than riding behind Dean.
Oh, he showed it was like a 50 watts difference. Something like that.
Really?
He showed- yeah.
Was it, Wiggins? Is that his name on Valair Factory Racing? He's a shorter guy.
I don't.
He's got the.
I don't know about 50 watts, but it depends on the wind and the
Yeah,
terrain.
yeah.
But I'm surprised.
Maybe the numbers a little bit high, but I know he said it was a substantial watt saving being like a tall guy versus a shorter guy, and same course, same everything, and he showed the differences. Maybe it was 25, I don't remember, but he showed like you save a lot of watts.
Yeah, I'm trying always to find the bigger people to
Really?
hide, but I have to get really low.
I mean, of course, the smaller the person is, sometimes you got to get in your drops and get real low.
I mean, sometimes on the plaza ride,
You know.
for me to get a draft behind Murray, I have to have Root and Murray in front of me to get a draft. There's no draft.
I just can't tell the difference.
I surely can tell the difference. I mean, for example, one of my best drafts, well, Dean is one of them, but Drew, tall Drew, Thea Drew.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
He's an amazing draft.
Come on, he's 7
Mason
feet
Roca
tall.
is an amazing
Well,
draft.
he's 6'9".
These guys are
big boys,
amazing
yeah.
drafts.
Eric Dietrichson's a good
I
guy.
mean, Alex Kapanen,
Shout out to Diddy.
no draft.
He's a
No
good
draft
guy.
whatsoever.
So you're a Cat 1 or Cat 2?
Oh, sorry. So I'm a Cat 2. There aren't very many Cat 1s in the Masters because to become a Cat 1, you have to get points for placings in a elite Cat 2 race. So I would have to go down with the young guys and place highly.
Unless you're like a SIG.
Who is a legacy Cat 1, was a
Correct.
Cat 1 when they were
Correct.
younger.
Right,
so
right.
there's in my age group, there's maybe like 5 or 10 Cat 1s. And they're guys who raced as pros when they were young.
You don't do
Typically.
You don't do anything else but road.
Only road, yeah. I just don't have the time. So I still work for a consulting company, kind of busy. I would love to do track and cross and gravel. Did a gravel race this year, but yeah, just road.
And your main focus is cyclocross.
No, my main focus is riding my bike and
Fun.
having fun.
That's
but
fun.
I when I did stop racing crits, which was I believe 2015. I was Cat 3 doing the Masters 1, 2, 3 races at the time. A mountain bike Cat 1, cyclocross Cat 2.
Wow.
But
Wait, and you did mention earlier that your first group ride was a crit race.
the first group ride, my first
That's
literal group ride was the Fall Fling crit. That's obviously at the end of the year.
You think your motorcycle racing helped you?
Absolutely not. No, because like I said,
the handling
I mean,
was.
the handling
Well,
is
the
not a
handling's
problem,
good.
right? And rubbing elbows at close, that wasn't a problem.
Well, that's a big problem for everyone else, though.
Exactly. Yes.
It is,
Yes,
yes.
it is.
That wasn't a problem. The problem was I didn't know how to race a bicycle.
But you figured it out the following week.
Yeah, because I was told not to do that, right?
That's pretty fast, man.
Yeah. I mean, the fitness was kind of
Brian got
there,
Brian.
right? Because you got to be fit to race motorcycles as well. I mean, you
Yeah.
turn your throttle, but heart rate goes up to, you do pin your heart rate when you're racing motorcycles, and more or less due to fear, I guess. But
I'm not gonna lie. I think crit racing for me is one of my biggest fear where I don't race crits because I live through my friends and I see what happened to them and I don't wish that on them and I don't wish it on myself. And I have a family and I just don't want to crash. And
I get that. Nobody
It's
wants
just-
to crash.
drives me. It makes me cringe. WNR. We're not trying to win, but it's not like a big grand finale. I'm not trying to catapult it. So we're more a little bit safer, I think. Of course, there's some bad races every now and then, but I think in general it's a pretty safe ride, and from experience, it's gotten better. I think.
I think it's a lot safer now than it was. The reason why there's two WNRs, two main ones, is because of safety reasons. There was a year where there was probably 70, 80 riders, and people were jockeying for position and stuff like that, and I believe like 6 or 7 dudes went down. And that night, there was a couple of private text messages and chats, and we decided, let's take a select few and split it off and do a different route. That's when all rides started at 6:30. And that ride turned into what is currently known as the Turin route at this point. And
Which is the 545 group.
which is now the 545.
545 group, yeah.
Correct. And and I was on a club team at the time, and we decided, along with Turin, to sponsor the ride. So it was basically our team ride, and it was invite only at the time. And it just grew and grew and grew, and there were a lot of nasty things said about us at that time, but bygones be bygones, right? But yeah.
No, we're still here.
I mean,
we're recruiting several new people.
And during
Cool
COVID,
people.
I abandoned it. I decided to start riding with Jacob and Bevan on the original route that we do now, and we decided to combine some of the best features of the CCC ride and the best features of the Turin ride. That's why we're doing the rollers and going through that whole thing now, because we combine some of those features. Before, we used to go Carmax, Tower Road to Green Bay to Baha'i. Never did the rollers.
See? So that's why we need you. You're a true OG, and you know these things. I didn't know. I'm learning these things today. So that's why you're a true OG.
That's how. That's the history of it, basically. But even before that, there was a Turin ride that was out of 1027 in Evanston.
Yep.
That's the real OGs.
I love the duality between you two, because we have structured fun,
That's fun.
fun.
Well, I'll tell you, what?
I think Omar is somewhere in between. So as we wrap up today's show, guys, I want to thank you both for being here. Any final thoughts, you guys? Anything you guys would like to plug? Any just last minute life lessons that you want to shout out to the audience?
I have nothing to plug, but just because you're a cyclist doesn't mean you have to live like a cyclist. Enjoy yourself, drink beer.
I like it.
Yeah.
Come to 7-Eleven.
Don't forget, it's a social thing, right? Bike riding is social. It doesn't have to be all training and shit like that, right? Have fun, drink beer with your friends, laugh. Laughing is important. Drink more beer. Beautiful. One time I drank 12 beers and rode home with a case of beer.
So 24 total. And
that's my one of my greatest accomplishments.
This is going to be the preview of the video as soon as they press play.
I have
on
a
YouTube.
picture
It's
too.
gonna... Dean, would you like to counter that? I'm kidding, but what? Any final words?
No, I love the fun part. I mean, I think if you're near a bike, it's a good thing. And fun is the most important. Even if you're doing structure, fun is still the main point. And just love being here with you guys. Patrick, it's been amazing to watch you grow the YouTube channel, and I'm just in awe of your mechanical skills of building bikes and just hearing other podcasters talk about you all over the globe. It's been totally cool. So
Thank you. I'm flattered.
yeah, it's so awesome.
Omar?
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Again, meeting Brian, and just again, 7-Eleven is just one of the best times of my cycling life. Like I look forward to it. Sometimes I can't make it, but if I can't make it, sometimes you guys know I still come out after the ride to hang out with you guys, because that's how much love and respect I have for the group. And you guys I learned so much about biking, and it's just a fun time. And yeah, in closing, I just want to thank you guys for coming out, Dean and Brian, Patrick. This is going to be a great thing in the future. We're going to keep on doing this. We're going to keep on doing it. And again, big shout out to Evo for letting us use his shop.
Shout out
Dragon
to
Spine.
Evo.
Big shout out to
Spine.
Evo, Dragon Spine. Guys, come on, check him out.
New studio in Chicago.
We love it.
Love you, bro.
Yeah, awesome. You're a good guy.
Beautiful. Well, that is all the time we have this evening, guys. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Thank you to our guests and our hosts for being here. Shout out once again to Evo. Tune in as we will be making this a more regular thing, as you can see with all the equipment that we have invested. But as always, guys, questions, comments, and concerns, please leave them down below if you're watching this from YouTube. And we will be sure to put this on some of the streaming platforms
In the
as
future.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good night. God bless. And we'll see you guys on the next one.
Peace.
Peace.